Hey guys, welcome to the X-Ring. On today's episode, what I wanted to do was start a series on how to build a precision rifle on a budget. Okay, so something very inexpensive. So I'll go over what I've picked up and the prices that I paid for them, and basically what I would do to get this thing to shoot precision or a precision rifle or precision targets, if you will. So I think you'll be surprised. We'll see how this project goes because I picked up some stuff used secondhand. This is a Remington VTR. Okay, it's chambered in 223. I actually picked this up, even though these are somewhat expensive. I actually picked this up at a gun show for $300. Okay, these are not known to be precision rifles. As a matter of fact, if you look on some threads about it, you'll see that some of the VTRs have some big accuracy issues. But what the heck, I figured why not? Let's do it. It was $300. The price was right. Working up from there, I did have a Badger Ordnance base laying around. It is a 20-minute of angle base. So I had one of these, but either way, you could pick up a base, somewhat inexpensive. But remember what I said from the beginning. You always want to have your money tied up in those optics. So the optics are what's going to be very important. You want something repeatable. This is not an inexpensive scope. However, I got it inexpensively. This is actually a Leopold Mark IV. It is the 8.5 to 25 LRT. I actually worked this in on a trade. I got this scope for $600. So if I've got this for $6, I've got this for $3. And guys, like I said, there's some other things out there. You could go with something cheaper, rifle-wise. On the optics, though, you really want to have something that's definitely repeatable. Whether you're going with something like a PST out of a Vortex, or if you can find an inexpensive like an SHV or something like that, like a Night Force, or even an older Leopold or something like that. We'll go from there. Now, this just has a standard mil-dot reticle in it. It has MOA adjustment, so it's not going to be your mil-mil setup. But what I'd like to do with this project is go through, clean this rifle, because I don't know how many rounds have been on it or anything else. It does have some rust on it. I'm going to take some of that rust off, just wiping it off with solvent. And then we're basically going to take this thing, we're going to mount it up. I'll show you how I'm cleaning it, what I'm doing to it. I'm not going to get crazy with the accurizing, and hopefully by the end of this series, we'll be able to take this VTR and using something like Strelok or something like that on our phone, be able to engage targets, to 700-800 yards and, come back into 100, 500, 700, do things like that. So we'll see how this series goes. Stay tuned. All right, guys, so the first thing I want to do is get this rifle up to speed, get some of the rust off of it. I'm going to go ahead and disassemble it just by simply taking the bolt out of it. Once I take the bolt out, I'm going to remove the screws from the bottom, the two screws right here holding on the floor plate. And then what I'll do is I'll clean up the action a little bit. All right, guys, so I've just loosened the screws on the floor plate. I'm going to take the floor plate out. Go ahead and take that out. I'll take it out of the action. And then, yeah, we've got rust all inside of here, rust on the top of that. I'm just going to wipe this off with solvent. I'll punch the barrel out, and then one of the most important things, and if you guys have followed any of my videos, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make sure all the copper is removed from the barrel using something like Bortec or Sweets or something like that. And then we'll start with the clean, fresh barrel, and we'll see. We'll put it all back together and put the scope on it. I'll show you how I mount all that, and we'll go from there. All right, guys, so on this VTR barrel, it does have this funky cutout in the barrel itself. You guys can see all that carbon. I'm going to go ahead and try to remove some of that carbon, scrape it out of there, and then that way I'm starting fresh. I don't even know the twist rate on this barrel, so we'll check the twist rate and we'll go from there. That way I know what kind of bullets I need to shoot. All right, guys, so I literally just took just some tools and or just like a little tool, like a punch and a brush, and just kind of loosen this up, and that was about it. So I've taken the carbon out of that as much as I could get off of it. Removed a lot of the rust off the action. So that's where we're at with it. We'll pick up in just a second. All right, guys, so even though this was an inexpensive rifle for me, I'm still going to use a bore guide. Put the bore guide in here. I'm going to punch the barrel out a few times and see how much copper we can get out of here, because like I said, I don't even know the history of this rifle. Alright, guys, so I am still using the one-piece rod. I'm using some Hoppe's number 9 with a patch. This is about the 5th patch through here, and there's a reason why I probably got it so cheap. I don't think the person ever cleaned it. But, we'll get this carbon out. I'm just going to keep on pushing these wet patches, and then I'll also push some copper brushes through there. Make sure I get all the carbon out. Once I do that, I'll use that Vortex. All right, guys, so all I've been using has been Hoppe's number 9, and then I pushed it out until they came clean, and then I used a 5.56 jag, and I have pushed this through wet with solvent. It's about 50 patches later, but I still keep getting carbon out of this. So once I get all of this completely cleaned, then I will start with copper defouling. So that's where I'm at. All right, guys, so I got all the carbon fouling out of this. Now what I want to do is test the twist rate on this barrel. Now, don't overthink it. All I do is I take a cleaning rod like this, and I make a mark on it. Something like this, I just scribe a mark in the anodizing. I don't know if the light's going to catch that. Yeah, you guys can see that right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert this with a cleaning brush in it, make sure everything's tight on it, make sure you have one that's free spinning, just like this on ball bearings. And what I do is I start it in about right there or so, or just enough to where I can get a full push on it. Okay, so right now I've got this in the 12 o'clock position. I'm just going to make a mark on the top just so I know when I'm back to center. And then I'm going to make a mark right here on the cleaning rod. I'm just taking a Sharpie marker, just marking the outside of it. And then I'm going to push this until I get back to the rotation again. So there is one full rotation right there. Once I get one full rotation, I just mark the cleaning rod again. I'm going to push this brush through. Taking the brush off, I never pull the brush back into the action. And now I actually have 2 Sharpie marks on this rod here. So then I'm going to take my tape measure. I'm going to measure this. And based on the 2 marks, I have a 1 9 twist barrel, because there's the 2 marks. I've got 9 inches between, so basically it takes 9 inches of barrel length for one full rotation. So not really what I was hoping for. I was hoping it was a 1 8 because it would like the heavier bullets better, but there's nothing wrong with a 1 9, and 1 9 should shoot 69s just fine. It should shoot the 72s just fine. It'd probably do fine with the 77s, but I don't know. So I'm going to get into decoppering this, and we'll see how it does with the copper. Alright guys, so for those of you that follow my channel, you know that the only things I really use to clean my precision rifles is Hoppe's number 9, and I'll use a copper brush, and then I'll use by Bortec, it's called CU+3 copper remover. It's pretty cheap, you can get it from Midway or any place like that. And once I've removed all the carbon fouling out of here by using the Hoppe's and using the bronze brush and just following that up, once all the black is removed from it, what I'll do is I'll dry the barrel with a dry patch, and then I'll put one wet patch of this through there and let it soak for about 5 or 10 minutes. It's not as aggressive as, let's say, Sweets that's ammonia based, so I'm not really worried about it staying in here that long. But I know I'm not going to have peak accuracy with this rifle unless I get all the copper out, and because it was a pre-owned rifle, who knows how much copper's in here. Alright guys, so I've ran a couple patches through there. Now you got to remember, when you're dealing with copper, blue is bad. So these are all blue patches that have been coming out after soaking. I don't know if you can see that with the light, with the fluorescent lights, but it kind of matches my glove. And I want to get all that copper out of there. So, you know, this might take a while. I'm going to spare you guys the agony of that, but I'm just going to let it soak for a couple minutes, and then I'll push another patch through and do some more of the Bortec until I don't see any more blue, or I just see a light tinge of blue. In a perfect world, you want to get rid of all of it, and then we'll go into mounting scopes and stuff. Alright guys, so I got all the copper out of the action, everything's ready to go, and I placed it into the stock that it came with. And what I noticed is I'm getting contact here, and that's not what I want, because I need a free-floating barrel. I want something that allows the harmonics to kind of flow freely, if you will. However, this is a VTR, it does have a triangular barrel, and I don't want to go through with a Dremel and start cutting all the stuff out until I see how it does. So in a perfect world, you do want this to be free-floated, but I'm going to skip that procedure. If I don't have accuracy with it the way that it is, then that'll be my next step in doing that. Alright guys, so what I'm going to do now, I've got it in the action. I went ahead and torqued up the action screws. You know, this one right here, I didn't want to go crazy tight with it. Typically on like a Remington 700, like a PSS or something, you want to go with somewhere around, you know, 60 to 65 inch-pounds. For the base screws, but I'm not going to mess with that. What I did is I did about 50 inch-pounds. This is not the best stock in the world. Actually, it's a very cheap stock, but like I said, we're trying to do this on a budget, so we just want to make it work. So on this base here, what you want to do is start off by making sure all of this is clean, okay? You want to make sure that your 4 mounting screws are clean. Take some brake parts cleaner or something like that. Make sure that your threads are nice and dry. Some guys will argue, hey, you know, I like to install my screws dry. Other guys say, you know, well, you don't want to use Loctite because of wet torquing and whatnot. I've always done it this way. It's never been an issue for me. So what I did was brake parts cleaner to clean that, brake parts cleaner to clean the screws, And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a thin coat of Loctite on the bottom of the base, on the front and the rear. That way, once I mount this and get it affixed here, now I'm going to keep water from seeping into those cracks, because that Loctite will help seal that out. And when you have steel on steel, eventually over time what you're going to do is develop rust under these, and you're not going to take these things off that often. And so you don't want to have a big rust pit under there whenever you do take it off to service it or change your scope or whatever. So I'll just use blue Loctite on it, and I'm going to tighten these down with 15 to 18 inch-pounds. Should be plenty sufficient to get this base installed. We'll pick up right after. All right, guys, so I got everything cleaned off. I've got the screw started in here. I've got the base on, and then now I'm going to go ahead and use just a little bit of torque. I've already reviewed this tool that I'm using. It's called a Borka Tools. I've got it set for 18, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in the center. I'm going to work my way out, so when this breaks over, I know I've got 18 inch-pounds. So there's middle, middle back, outside front, outside back. Now I always touch this one more time again. Nice and smooth. Always work, whenever you're working with a rail or something metal like that, always try to run your screws from the inside out, and that way it's tensioning out that way. So now my base is on, I'm good to go. So what I'll do is I'll install the rings, and then I'll go with the scope from there. All right, guys, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and mount my rings on the bases here. What I always do with the rings is once I get them on, I have an idea or a general location of where I want them to be, is I will get it kind of loose, okay? Now, before you guys start asking about lapping the rings and everything else, if you're using good quality rings like Badgers or Night Forces or anything like that, with today's machining technology, you're typically not going to have to go in here and lap these. This is also not a high recoiling rifle because it is a 223, but this is important. So the muzzle is that way, and you've got all the slop within the Picatinny on this Badger base. So what you want to do is make sure that you run your ring forwards onto the base, okay? And then when you start tightening it down, think about what we're doing here. We're trying to minimize that movement so that when the gun recoils and the scope's here, it's already going forward. So I don't like it in the rear position. I like it all the way forwards. And then on these call for 65 inch-pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and mock these up because I don't know exactly where they're going to go. Once again, forwards. Once I've got it locked in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the scope in here. That looks like that'll work. I don't like getting too close to either the objective bell or to the center turrets. I like to have a little more dispersion here. I don't want them too close. That looks like it's going to work out really well. So that's going to suit my needs. But I also need to check and make sure that when I look through the scope, especially on something like on the higher power setting, because I might need it forwards. So for me, I'm just eyeballing it right now. The eye relief, that feels good about right there, and I'm good right here on my tube on this. So that's how I get it set up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the top caps on, and I will get these started, but I won't snug them up because I still have to level everything. Whenever you tighten your rings, make sure that you alternate your pattern, okay? Think of it like a car tire or something, but I'm going one side, opposite. I'm coming back to this side, opposite. You want to keep doing that. And then what I usually do is use a set of feeler gauges so that I get the gap even on both sides, because you're going to have a lot of play within the rings themselves. I don't like one side that's touching and one side that's got a huge gap on it. So I'll get some feeler rings or feeler gauges. You can buy them at AutoZone or wherever place like that. And then I'll get them where they're pretty close, and then I'll get it snugged down, then I'll get it level before I actually do the snugging or tightening it down completely. 18 inch-pounds should be sufficient for this. I don't go much over that, and that's never been an issue for me. I know that some manufacturers, now this is straight from a company like Vortex, they said don't ever use 18 inch-pounds if you're going to use Loctite. I'm not using Loctite. They don't like it because a lot of guys don't have calibrated torque wrenches or whatnot. But this is an important step, making sure you get everything level and good to go. We'll pick up with leveling.